Ado is now the biggest J-pop artist on YouTube, and it's not just because of her voice. She's reaching global audiences like few Japanese artists have done before. Last year's Wish tour was ambitious, and her upcoming Hibana tour has raised the bar even higher. Ado's label is pushing hard to expand her brand outside Japan, and her latest feature has done just that. On December 16th, Ado was the fourth and final artist to feature on Take Me to the Beach. Imagine Dragons are one of the most popular American bands, so this was a perfect way to expand her reach to a more mainstream market. It's currently Ado's most popular song, and even among the most popular Imagine Dragons songs. Although, I haven't seen this much hate towards an Ado song since her Le Sserafim collab, so let's break down the song and the story behind it. Before we go over the song, let's try to piece together how this collab actually happened. Back in November, Ado was living in the US for a month, and some speculated that her trip was related to the feature, but that wasn't the case. Both Ado and Imagine Dragons are signed to Universal Music, or labels under their ownership. So that's the simple answer. The other three artists that featured on Take Me to the Beach are all signed directly to Universal-owned labels as well. There's also this reaction video from March that's resurfaced. The tour manager of Imagine Dragons appeared on the Party Like a Rockstar podcast and was shown Ado's live performance of Odo. Despite his expressionless face while watching, he described the performance as a one-of-a-kind thing. Probably unrelated, but still a cool coincidence. Take Me to the Beach is the fourth track on Loom. It's Imagine Dragons' sixth studio album and their first release since Daniel Platzman's departure. The song has garnered a decent number of streams, but barely anything compared to their biggest hits. The production is bare bones and very simplistic like some of the other songs on Loom. The vocals are aggressive and stacked at times to add some depth. Singer Dan Reynolds said it's one of his favorite songs from the album, and he spoke about it having a serious background despite the lyrics being kinda goofy. He grew up as a people pleaser, possibly because he was a Mormon missionary, but he realized how unhappy this made him as he got older. The beach could be interpreted as a literal escape or a metaphor. Even for a radio song, I find the lyrics a bit corny, but they actually become very meaningful if you look at them from a certain angle. This Reddit user did an analysis of how Take Me to the Beach is actually a diss track against Mormonism. For some context, Reynolds was raised in a conservative Mormon household, went to a Mormon university, and served a 2-year Mormon mission. Although he's left the religion, these experiences have been reflected in his music over time. One of the band's biggest songs is actually about life after losing his faith in Mormonism. Before going over some of the post, I want to preface that I'm simply explaining it and not expressing any personal view towards anything religious. The opening verse describes how Mormons can be people pleasers and that their religion sets out a very specific life path for them to follow. The US state of Utah has a significant Mormon population and also a fascination with soda. This is largely because the Mormon church urges people to not consume alcohol or hot caffeinated drinks. I mentioned earlier that Reynolds served a Mormon mission. During those 2 years, he went to homes all day, knocked on their doors, and shared some religious teachings. It could also relate to how those who leave the church will get calls from people trying to bring them back. Mormons are required to give a tenth of their annual income to the church. It's called tithing. Reynolds is saying he's done paying this as well as listening to Mormon preachings. Now, the chorus seems incredibly surface level, but it could be referring to Utah's mountains and snow. Utah is also a landlocked state, so going to a beach infers he's both leaving and wanting to get far away. The Mormon scriptures mention being hard-hearted, which describes people who are rebellious and refuse to follow God. This could be a wordplay to imply he's hard-hearted and has left the religion. That's all I'm going to cover, but definitely check out the rest of the post. Although it's purely speculation, it still gave me a greater appreciation for the lyrics. If I had to describe my own thoughts towards the song, I'd say it's a catchy radio song, but too generic to be anything more. So does Ado's feature make the song better? As an Ado fan, I have to say yes. But the streaming stats can also back it up. Her feature has surpassed the other three and is on pace to surpass the original version. Keep in mind that the other three artists who featured have a much smaller fanbase than Ado. This feature is only the second instance of Ado writing her own lyrics, the first being Shoka, so maybe we'll see her write more music in the coming year. Her lyrics continue these themes of self-identity in society that's found a lot in her own music. The other notable thing about the lyrics is the amount of English phrases. Ado has certainly come a long way with their English.
So I want to perform performance but I want to performance a concert. So your country in your country soon.
Although she recently spoke about struggling to learn the language, she's making great progress. Her willingness to learn will certainly allow for more collabs with English-speaking artists in the future. Ado's verse starts with a very low-sounding a contrast to how the other features started, although Ernia also starts with an but this is more faint. For me, it gives it a sort of half-second of anticipation before she starts singing. Ado's vocals are what I'd want for her on this type of collaboration. They're very expressive and showcase her range, breathing, and all the other vocal stuff that I don't quite understand. All I know is that it sounds good, and I think most people listening would agree. If you do want a proper vocal analysis, I'd highly recommend these two videos. The biggest difference between Ado's feature and the others is that she remains on the track after her verse. The other artists come in for their verse and leave after their pre-chorus, but Ado remains for the rest of the song. She then switches between sharing the spotlight with Reynolds and providing background vocals. This is my favorite part of the feature and why I think it's objectively the best out of the four. With her verse, she flexes her own style, and then after, she joins in with Reynolds in such a cohesive manner. Overall, it's a fun blend of Japanese and Western music. A lot of people are quick to dismiss new music when there's a language barrier, so I feel like after her verse, some listeners may find it easier to appreciate her vocals if they're alongside Reynolds. The last thing worth mentioning is the music video. It takes place in this computer control room that kinda reminds me of Nerve HQ from Evangelion. The computers show lyrics on the screen and change color to either orange or blue depending on who's singing. I love the retro animation style and how when both of them are singing, they divide the amount of computers for each singer based on whether they're singing equally or if one's taking the lead. Anything that receives a lot of attention is bound to receive some baseless hate, but the hate for this song has been unusually high for Ado standards. The reason seems quite simple, and it's because it's an Imagine Dragons song. Some fans probably expected her feature to transform the song into something more Ado sounding, but that's not what a feature is. Every big fanbase has that small section of delusional fans, so I hope that this doesn't give the impression to new fans that this is what most Ado fans are like. A similar thing happened when Ado collabed with two guest artists for Ready Steady, and it actually resulted in her responding on Twitter. She was given a chance to present herself to a new audience, and Imagine Dragons is to thank for that. It's a huge milestone for both Ado and J-pop as a whole, especially since most of her lyrics are in Japanese. Imagine Dragons were one of the first bands to introduce me to the music world. I remember singing Demons at my school's talent show when I was 10, so this collab means a lot to me in signifying how much Ado has grown in the past few years. It's also the first time some of my friends are listening to Ado without my influence, so I can only imagine how many people will come across Ado through this song. Take Me to the Beach is already among Ado's top features, and it may end up near the top of the list by the end of the year. Given Ado's deal with Geffen Records to start activities in the US and around the world, it seems likely that we'll get more collabs like this in the future. If you're interested in more Ado content and would like to go down the rabbit hole of her music, check out my other Ado videos. Let me know if you'd like more of these song overview videos in the future. I also have a Discord server if you'd like to chat about all things Ado and J-pop, so feel free to join. Otherwise, thanks for watching.